Hi everybody, welcome back. Thanks for watching. Today we're going to be talking about how progress is not linear. So even though you are going up and down and you feel like you might be losing ground, you're actually not, and you're actually still making progress towards your goals. So let's talk a little bit about why this is such an important topic, because I do feel like this is an incredibly important topic. I feel like I'm talking about this with clients all the time. I feel like I'm reminding myself of this pretty constantly because it is really discouraging when you're going about your business and you're like running forward and you're trying really hard and you're doing all these things and you're putting things together and like finally you're able to see some tangible proof that you're not in the place that you were before, or that something's changed. You're a little bit better with your anger, or the control issues have like limited themselves just a tiny bit, or you're more forgiving of mistakes in yourself and others. And then all of a sudden something happens and it just comes crashing down around your ears. And that can be really upsetting. It can be disturbing. It can be discouraging. And then what we do next is like really the pivot point, right? Because if we make the decision like, you know what, this isn't doing anything, I'm not getting any better, I'm done, like I'm done trying, this is stupid, then that's what will happen. It's one of those kind of like self-fulfilling prophecy things. And if we can respond to it a little bit differently, and we can say like, I'm just going to kind of keep putting one foot in front of the other, and I'm going to move through this moment because I need to, and because it's important to me, then you can have a totally different experience. So I think it is a really important topic. I definitely want to spend some time talking about how we know, some metaphors that I think are really helpful in my life that I use with clients pretty constantly, and just talking about how to deal with it. So I think at this point, a lot of you know that I really like powerlifting. Weightlifting is like one of my favorite metaphors for life. And I think that there are a lot of really good reasons for that, but this is one of those spaces where I think it makes the most sense. And I want you to think back to any sport that you've ever done. I'm going to be talking about squats, but if you just kind of hang with me, think about a sport that you might have done or a skill that you might have developed, playing an instrument, something like that. And then I think it'll make sense for you kind of no matter what it is that you have in your head. But for me, it's squats. Squats are my favorite lift. They're my best lift, and they make me feel the most powerful and empowered when they're going well. Okay. So when I first started to squat, and everybody kind of does this, we have our own little body quirks. A lot of people's knees cave in, they like round their shoulders, their like butt winks in, right? Their hips like tilt in a way that's not good. And these are really big form issues. You roll up on your toes and then you can't squat at all. So if you start with body weight squats, and that's what you should do, you start with body weight squats, and then you have these like weird little things, like let's say that your knees cave in or your back rounds, then you're going to be hurting yourself potentially, even just with the body weight squat, right? And then you practice and you get better at it, and you roll your shoulders back and you focus on like getting your knees out or whatever it is that you need to do for yourself, for your body, for your form. And it's hard work and it takes a long time, and it's kind of like drudgery, like you're pushing through, you're like, wading through the shit kind of, and then, the miracle happens that one day you just have this beautiful squat and like your knees are out and your shoulders are back, and it just feels really powerful and exciting and awesome. And you're like, oh my gosh, I have it. Like I did this, like I'm good at this now. But then what happens is you add weight, right? Because you're not just going to do body weight squats forever. You could, and if you do, then that's great. But if you're a power lifter, you're not. If you're a power lifter, you're going to start adding weight. So you add the bar, maybe a little bit of weight on the bar. And then what happens? Well, whatever it was that your body was doing when you were trying to do the body weight squats in the first place, your knees caving in, your shoulders are rounding forward, your back is twisting or whatever, that is going to happen again. It's going to happen again. And it's really, really easy to feel discouraged in those moments. Like, oh my gosh, I just learned how to do this. And like, apparently I don't know how to do this anymore. Apparently like this is not something that I'm capable of. And that's really discouraging. So, like, if we follow with kind of what we were talking about before in terms of, well, what do you do now? Like, what you do now matters. What you do now is like sort of the crux. This is the pivot point. This is when, like the rubber meets the road kind of. You could make the decision like, okay, well, obviously I suck at squats, right? I'm not getting stronger. I'm not getting better. My squat is not getting better. I can't believe I'm doing all that same shit again. Or you can remind yourself, this is different, right? This is not about me being worse at squats. This is about my environment changed such that it got harder to do a squat. So in other words, if I can do a squat now that's loaded with the bar and maybe even some weight, then I am stronger than I was when I was doing a beautiful, perfect body weight squat with no weight added, right? You are stronger. It's just that the environment, the stresses in your environment actually got more. They got heavier, right? If we're talking about powerlifting. And we can say the same thing in terms of like your anger. We can say the same things in terms of your anxiety. We can say the same thing in terms of trauma triggers, right? Is that if your stresses on the whole are like pretty even keel, and then you work on your shit and you get to the point where you're like not attacking yourself quite as much, you're not attacking other people quite as much, you're rolling with it when things are really difficult, you're just kind of like breathing through it and like letting go and kind of okay whatever, and like you can feel it rise up, but you're able to move through it, you use your skills, and then all of a sudden like your baseline stress goes up, and so things start to feel more difficult kind of across the board. Maybe it's finals week, maybe there's like an illness or a health thing in the family, maybe there's just a really big change, a divorce, a separation, you're moving, whatever. When those things happen, now all of a sudden you spill your coffee when you're walking out the door in the morning, and it feels like it all comes rushing back, and maybe you don't handle it very well. Maybe you yell, maybe you throw what you would consider to be a temper tantrum, maybe you start getting like that panicky experience and that anxiety stuff that you thought you were done with. It's really easy in that moment to feel like you haven't made any progress and everything is exactly the same. But if we really think about it, if we can take a step back and we can really objectively look at what is happening in your life now and what was happening in your life then, if you can get really good at dealing with your shit when everything is basically baseline, that is not the same thing as saying that you're going to be really good at dealing with your shit when things get a little bit more difficult and a little bit more challenging, right? As soon as things start to escalate and things start to get a little bit more difficult, your shit's going to come back out. I mean, this is the way that you deal with stress. The way that some people deal with stress with their squat is their knees cave in. Their knees are going to cave in when they add weight. The health problems, the separation, the divorce, the finals week, the whatever, that stuff is like adding weight to your bar. Right? Are you following me? So basically what I'm saying is you are getting stronger because now you're being challenged more by your environment. And if you can manage inside of this difficult environment when your baseline is escalated because the baseline stress in your life is a little bit higher, when things go back to baseline, oh my gosh, it's going to be cake. It's going to be so much easier for you. And it's not going to stay at baseline, right? It's going to continue to get harder and you're going to continue to have moments where you're challenged. But the thing is that you'll have more time when you're feeling good. You'll have more time when you feel like you're able to manage and you're able to experience yourself as capable and competent in the middle, in between the challenges and in between the stressors. So there's our metaphor, right? That basically weightlifting, we're talking about squats, right? Weightlifting, adding weight to the bar is going to make all of your old patterns come back out, but that doesn't mean that you're not getting better and that you're not getting stronger. It actually means that this is an indicator that you're putting your body, your life, your mind, whatever, under stress so that you can become stronger. This is an opportunity to get better, to get stronger, so on and so forth. So that when you go back to baseline, when you try to do a body weight squat, it's going to feel like nothing and it's going to feel really good. And we do have times when we're at baseline, so we want that to feel really good. We also have times when things are going to be really overwhelming and we're going to feel like we're drowning. So the reason we're talking about this and what is so important about what we're saying today is trying as best as we can to remind ourselves as quickly as possible in those moments that we feel like we failed, In the moments when we feel like we're drowning, in the moments when we feel like this is it, it's time to give up, it's okay to feel that way. You get to feel it. You get to feel like giving up. You get to be discouraged. That's okay, right? It's already there. That's already part of your experiencing. But if we can have that little voice in the back of your head, just that little bit of realization that says, you know, things are really hard right now. There are reasons that things are really hard right now. I'm just having a hard time. Things got heavier. Things got harder for me to manage. And that's why I'm seeing some of these same behaviors and some of these same symptoms. That is not the same thing as saying that I've not made progress. If you can just listen to that little voice, if you can have that observer self, that little voice in the back that's able to say like, hey, wait a minute. Your experience of yourself right now is skewed. That's pretty profound, and that can be life-changing. So that can really change your experience. It can help propel you forward. You can feel like giving up and still put one foot in front of the other. So this is something that really helps me. I hope it's helpful for you too. Please share this with somebody that you think could use it today. And if there are any other ways that you think about this, or if this kind of like made some light bulbs go off for you, let me know in the comments. Let's talk about it, because I love this stuff. I think it's super interesting. So thank you for watching. I'll be back in 2 weeks.